My parents told me $9,000 a month wasn't enough, so I sent them nine. One check. $9. After 12 years of paying their mortgage, their groceries, their vacations, and the medical bills for a heart condition my father never had, my mother made it up. Every doctor visit, every midnight phone call begging for more money, all of it a lie. The money I sent to keep my father alive bought my sister a BMW, a trip to Cancun, and a $3,000 dress she wore to my parents' anniversary party on the arm of my ex-husband. But she didn't know I'd been watching, and she didn't know what was in the envelope I carried in my purse that night. If your family ever treated you like an ATM that wasn't dispensing fast enough, subscribe. This took me 12 years to live and one night to end. My name is Elise Winslow, and for 12 years I was the best daughter money could buy, except I was the one paying. I was 24 when I sent the first envelope. Fresh out of college, first real paycheck from a junior analyst position at a firm downtown. $3,000. I tucked it into a white envelope and wrote on the front in blue ink for Mom and Dad, "Love, Elise." My mother called that evening. She didn't say thank you. She said, "This is a good start." By the time I was 36, the number was 9,000 a month. 9,000. Wired on the first Tuesday of every month, like rent on a life I didn't live in. I did it from my phone, usually at a red light on Lakeshore Drive, Maisie, humming in the back seat, her purple backpack wedged between juice boxes and library books. Transfer, confirm, done. Same as paying the electric bill, same as breathing. My mother had a way of making it feel normal. She never asked, she reminded. "Elise, don't forget the transfer. Your father has an appointment Thursday." Or, "Elise, can you add 200 this month? Paige's car insurance went up." Always a reason, always reasonable. Always just enough guilt folded into the request that saying no felt like stepping on a kitten. And Paige, my sister, 8 years younger, built like a magazine cover and allergic to effort. Paige needed a lot of things. Paige needed a car. So my parents put a down payment on a BMW X, 3 pearl white leather seats. My mother sent me a photo. Isn't she beautiful? She meant the car. I was driving a 2016 Toyota Corolla with a crack in the windshield I'd been ignoring for 7 months. Paige needed an apartment. So my parents covered the deposit and 6 months of rent. When I needed an apartment after my divorce, my mother said, "You make good money, Elise. You'll figure it out." Paige failed her real estate exam twice. My mother said, "She's just not a test person, she's creative." I got promoted to senior financial analyst, managed portfolios worth more than some people's zip codes. Nobody said anything. My mother texted me that week, but it was about Paige's birthday. And the birthdays. God, the birthdays. Paige turned 25. My parents threw a party, catered, decorated, 30 people, handed her the keys to the BMW in front of everyone. Paige cried. My mother cried. It was beautiful. I turned 35, 3 months later. I got a group text. "Happy birthday, Elise, love Mom and Dad and Paige." There was a cake emoji. That was it. Christmas was the same math. Paige Chanel purse, gift-wrapped ribbon. Me a candle from TJ Maxx, price tag still on the bottom, $8.99. Maisie nothing. We already spent so much on Paige's gift, honey. You understand? I understood. I always understood. That was the problem. My mother had a phrase she used like a skeleton key. It unlocked every door she needed and locked every one I tried to open. "Your sister is sensitive, Elise. She's not built like you. She needs more support." As if being strong was a punishment, as if surviving meant you didn't deserve softness. And I believed it. For 12 years, I believed that if I just gave enough money, enough patience, enough silence, eventually, they'd look at me the way they looked at Paige. Not with gratitude. I didn't need gratitude. I just wanted them to see me. Not my bank account. Me. I sat at my desk that Tuesday afternoon, managing 8-figure portfolios for clients who trusted me with their futures, and my phone buzzed. Mom, can you add $200 this month? Paige's insurance went up again. I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen, looked at the text. Two worlds. In one, I was competent, respected, relied upon. In the other, I was a direct deposit with a heartbeat. I typed OK and went back to work. Maisie was 8 that September. Brown hair, her father's jaw, my stubbornness. She asked questions I wasn't ready for, the kind that sound simple until you try to answer them honestly. Mommy, how come our apartment doesn't have a garage like Grandma's house? I told her garages were boring. She didn't believe me. She was 8, not stupid. My parents lived in a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs south of the city, paid off by me. New roof 2 years ago, me. Landscaping, property taxes, that kitchen renovation my mother wanted, me. Every month, $9,000 left my account and entered a house I helped build, but never belonged in. My father was quieter about it. Donald Winslow was the kind of man who expressed opinions by not having them. If my mother said the sky was green, he'd nod and ask what shade. He'd pick up the phone sometimes when she was mid-lecture and add, "Listen to your mother, Elise." Then he'd hand it back and return to whatever game was on TV. He wasn't cruel, he was just absent. Which I learned later is its own kind of cruelty. My mother always said his health was fragile. Your father's heart isn't what it used to be, Elise. We need to be careful with him. She said it so often it became wallpaper, always there, barely noticed, impossible to remove. I worried. Of course I worried. He was my dad. That was September 3rd. 12 years and 8 days since my first envelope. I didn't know it yet, but in 6 weeks I'd be standing in a room full of people I'd been paying for, and I'd finally tell them exactly what they were worth. Wes left on a Thursday. He took his gym bag, his protein powder, and the dog. He didn't take Maisie. I came home from work to a half-empty closet and a note on the kitchen counter written on the back of a takeout menu. I can't do this anymore. You know why. No signature, no forwarding address. Just 11 words and a grease stain from pad thai. Wes Langford was the kind of man who looked like a future. 6'2", square-jaw smile that made waitresses forget your order. He'd been a personal trainer when we met, then a real estate agent, then a crypto investor, then between things. Always between things. He had a gift for starting and a disability for finishing, but he was warm, and he was present. And when Maisie was born, he held her like she was made of glass, and I thought, this is enough. This is the life. It wasn't. By year 3, I was working 60 hours a week and coming home to a man who'd spent the afternoon networking at a bar in Wicker Park. By year 4, the arguments had a rhythm, me asking him to find something steady, him telling me I sounded like his mother. By year 5, he stopped arguing. Just got quiet. Quiet and gone. The Thursday he left, I called my mother. I was sitting on the bathroom floor because it was the only room with a lock, and Maisie was watching Bluey in the living room, and I didn't want her to hear me cry. My mother listened for about 45 seconds. Then she said, "Maybe if you'd been home more instead of working all the time, he would have stayed." I stopped crying. Not because the pain stopped, because something else replaced it. Something cold and flat like a coin pressed against your chest. Mom, I work because I pay for everything, including your house. Don't be dramatic, Elise. I'm just saying, men need to feel needed. You never made Wes feel needed. I didn't answer. There was nothing to answer. My husband had just walked out. My daughter was watching cartoons 10 feet away, and my mother's first instinct was to tell me it was my fault. I sent the $9,000 that Tuesday. Same as always. My father called once 3 days after Wes left. I thought maybe he'd say something different. Something soft. He said, "Your mother's right, Elise. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Then he asked if I'd watched the Bears game. I hadn't. He said they lost. Then he hung up. That was 3 years ago. Maisie was 5. Now she was 8. And she'd stopped asking when Daddy was coming home, which was worse than when she asked, because at least when she asked, I knew she still remembered wanting him there. I rebuilt. That's what you do when the floor drops. You find the joists and start hammering. I got the apartment in Lincoln Park. I set up Maisie's school, her dance class, her dentist appointments. I worked. I paid. I called my mother every Sunday, sent money every Tuesday, drove Maisie to my parents' house every other weekend so she could have grandparents, because I didn't want her growing up the way I felt like the world was a room with no chairs for her. 3 years of that. 3 years of holding it together with coffee and spreadsheets and bedtime stories and $9,000 a month to people who never once asked if I was okay. Then in September, my mother called with a new number. Elise, your father and I have been talking. 9,000 just isn't realistic anymore with inflation. Everything costs more, and your father's medication went up again. My stomach tightened. How much? We think 12 is fair. 12,000 a month. You got that promotion last year, and Paige needs help with her insurance. She's been struggling since she left that job. Paige hadn't left that job. Paige had been fired from a boutique for showing up late 11 times in 2 months. But in my mother's vocabulary, Paige never failed. She was finding herself. I took a breath. Mom, I'm raising Maisie alone. Daycare, rent, groceries, it's a lot. Silence. 3 seconds. Then, and we raised 2 daughters on 1 income. Don't talk to me about sacrifice. Her voice didn't rise. It never did. That was the trick. Gail Winslow could cut you open with the same tone she used to order coffee. You're the eldest, Elise. This is your responsibility. It's always been your responsibility. I said I'd think about it. She said, don't think too long. That evening, I picked up Maisie from my parents' house. She climbed into the back seat, buckled herself in. She was proud she could do it alone now. And I pulled out of the driveway past the BMW X3 I'd paid for, and the new landscaping I'd paid for, and the roof I'd paid for. We were on the expressway, the city lights sliding past when Maisie said it. Mommy, how come Grandma took Auntie Paige to Disneyland, but she said she was too tired to come to my school play? I looked at her in the rearview mirror. She was hugging the stuffed bear she'd had since she was 3. One ear was coming loose. 8 years old. She didn't know about money or transfers or the way adults use the word sacrifice, like a weapon. But she knew what it meant when someone chose someone else over you. Kids always know. They just don't have the words yet. I didn't answer. I drove. My hands squeezed the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. And for the first time in 12 years, one thought cut through everything else, clean and sharp, like a blade held up to light. I'm letting them do this to Maisie, not just to me, to her. That night, after Maisie fell asleep, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and a cup of coffee I never drank. I didn't call my mother. I didn't transfer money. I opened a new spreadsheet, and in cell A1 I typed payments to Gail and Donald Winslow, January 2012 to present. I called the hospital on a Tuesday. Not because I suspected anything, because I wanted to surprise my father by taking him to his next appointment myself. I'd been thinking about it all weekend. If I was going to confront my mother about the money I needed to understand what was real first. Dad's heart condition was the reason I'd bumped the payments from 7,000 to 9. 2 years of worry, 2 years of cutting corners on Maisie's dance classes and buying store-brand everything so I could cover what my mother called the specialist visits. The least I could do was drive him once. I sat in my car in the parking garage at work, engine off, and dialed St. Catherine's Medical Center. The phone rang 3 times. Patient services, how can I help you? Hi, I'm calling about my father, Donald Winslow. I'd like to check his next cardiology appointment so I can bring him in myself. Keyboard tapping. A pause. More tapping. Ma'am, I'm not showing a patient by that name in our system. Could you check again? Winslow. He's been seeing a cardiologist there for about 2 years. Another pause. I've checked twice, ma'am. We have no record of a Donald Winslow. Are you sure it's this hospital? I wasn't sure. Mom had mentioned St. Catherine's, or had she? I thanked the woman and hung up. Dialed Mercy General. Same question, same keyboard tapping, same answer. No patient by that name. I called Lakewood Memorial. Nothing. I called Crestview Medical Center, a long shot 40 minutes from my parents' house. Nothing. 4 hospitals. 0 records. I sat there with the phone in my lap, the parking garage humming with fluorescent light. Then I called Walgreens, the one on Maple, 2 blocks from my parents' house. My mother mentioned it once. That's where we pick up Dad's pills. Hi, I need to refill a prescription for Donald Winslow. Date of birth, March 14th, 1960. One moment. Keys clicking. Ma'am, I don't have any active prescriptions under that name. Nothing. No heart medication. No, ma'am. Nothing at all. I said thank you. I hung up. I stared at the steering wheel for a long time. No hospital, no doctor, no prescription, no heart condition. I scrolled through my phone. My mother's texts, hundreds of them. I started counting the ones that mentioned my father's health. A knot formed in my stomach and tightened with every swipe. Dad's doing better today. Thank God for that new specialist. The medication is helping, but doctor says we can't stop yet. Had a scare this morning. Dad's blood pressure spiked. Please pray. Don't ask Dad directly, honey. He gets anxious talking about it. That one. That was the lock on the door. Every time I'd tried to talk to my father about his condition, ask him how he was feeling, offer to go with him to the doctor, my mother intercepted. He doesn't want to worry you. He gets anxious. Let me handle it, Elise. And I did. Because she was his wife. Because I trusted her. 47 messages. I counted them twice. 47 times my mother had typed words about a disease that didn't exist, sent them to a daughter who was skipping meals to send money, and hit send without hesitation. 47 lies delivered with the same thumb she used to text "God is good" to her church group. That night, after Maisie went to bed, I opened my laptop. I pulled up 24 months of bank statements, every dollar I'd wired to my parents since the diagnosis. I didn't need special software. I didn't need a detective. I just needed to read what was already there. I went line by line. $4,200 BMW dealership. Down payment, $3,000 Nordstrom. Single purchase, $2,800. Prestige travel. Cancun business class 2 tickets. $1,900 Sedona Spa Resort. Weekend package. $1,400 Best Buy. 70-inch TV. I kept scrolling. Department stores, restaurants, a golf club membership, clothing boutiques, concert tickets, and then the number I was looking for, the one that should have been there. $0 any hospital, $0 any pharmacy, $0 any doctor. Not a single dollar went to keeping my father alive, because my father didn't need keeping alive. He was fine. He was probably sitting in his recliner right now watching ESPN, eating Doritos with a heart that worked better than my trust in my own family. None of that was medicine. None of that was saving him. Every dollar I'd lost sleep over, every dance class Maisie missed, every time I'd eaten rice and beans for dinner, so the transfer would clear, all of it had been converted into leather seats and spa days and business class legroom for people who couldn't be bothered to come to my daughter's school play. I closed the laptop. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but the tears wouldn't come, like my body already knew that crying was something I did for people who deserved it. And tonight, the only person in that apartment who deserved anything was asleep down the hall, clutching a bear with one loose ear. 47 lies. I counted them twice. And I would have stopped. There would have confronted my mother that night, would have screamed, would have cried. But the next Saturday, Maisie was playing on Grandma's iPad. And that's when I found something worse. I wasn't looking for it. That's what made it worse. I wasn't even suspicious. I was just picking up my daughter. Saturday afternoon. My parents' house smelled like cinnamon. My mother had been baking something, probably for the anniversary party she wouldn't shut up about. The TV was on in the living room. Golf. My father was in his recliner, feet up a bowl of mixed nuts on the armrest, laughing at something the commentator said. His color was good. His breathing was easy. He looked like a man whose only medical concern was a second helping of pecan pie. I stood in the hallway and watched him for a moment. This man, this healthy, comfortable, relaxed man, was the reason I'd been eating store-brand pasta for 2 years. The reason Maisie's dance classes went from 3 times a week to 1. The reason I'd stared at my bank account at 2 a.m., wondering if I was a bad daughter for resenting the transfers. He wasn't dying. He was watching golf. Elise, come sit, honey. My mother's voice floated from the kitchen. I heard Fleetwood Mac playing low on the radio everywhere. She was in a good mood. She was always in a good mood when she had an audience. Just grabbing Maisie's stuff, Mom. Where's her backpack? Living room somewhere. She's been playing outside all afternoon. I let her use the iPad to watch her little videos earlier. It's on the couch. I found Maisie's backpack by the TV. Then I picked up the iPad. The screen was still on. Maisie hadn't locked it. I was going to close it, tuck it into the backpack, and leave. But the screen wasn't showing a kid's video. It was showing iMessages. Synced. The name at the top was Paige, and the messages weren't from Maisie. I should have put it down. I should have closed the screen and walked out. But my hands didn't listen. They scrolled up, and up, and up. The thread went back 2 years. 2 years of messages between my sister and a contact saved as W with a blue heart emoji. Miss you already. Last night was perfect. She doesn't deserve you? Never did. When are you telling her we don't need to tell her anything? She's too busy counting money to notice. W wasn't a mystery. I knew his texting style. I knew the abbreviations, the lowercase. Everything the way he never used periods. I'd read thousands of messages just like these, except 2 years ago they'd been sent to me. Wes. I kept scrolling. My pulse was loud in my ears, but my hands were steady. Selfie Paige and Wes on a couch. I didn't recognize her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. Another restaurant, 2 glasses of wine, her lips on his cheek. Another a bed. White sheets. His arm across the pillow. The timestamp started before our divorce. 5 months before. Wes hadn't left because I worked too much. He'd left because my sister was already there waiting. And then I saw it. A thread between Paige and Mom. Recent 3 weeks ago. Paige, Wes, and I are going to the anniversary party together. Is that okay, Mom? Of course, baby. It's time. Paige. What about Elise, Mom? I'll handle Elise. She'll be fine. I scrolled further back. 6 months ago, Mom. I'm happy for you, baby. You deserve someone who pays attention to you. Don't tell your sister. 4 words. Don't tell your sister. My mother knew. She didn't just know, she approved. She blessed it. She managed it. She kept it wrapped in tissue paper and hidden in a drawer like a gift she was waiting for the right moment to give. I put the iPad down. Screen off. Exactly where I found it. The living room was the same. Golf on TV. My father reaching into the nut bowl. My mother singing along to Fleetwood Mac in the kitchen. Oh, I want to be with you everywhere. The cinnamon smell. The family photos on the wall, all 4 of us at Christmas 10 years ago, smiling Paige on Mom's lap, me standing slightly behind Dad, already fading into the background. Everything looked the same. Everything was different. My mother came around the corner, drying her hands on a dish towel. You're not staying for dinner. I made that casserole Maisie likes. I looked at her. This woman. My mother. Who had fabricated a heart condition to drain my bank account. who had watched my sister seduce my husband and said, "Don't tell your sister," who was standing in a kitchen I paid for wearing an apron smiling, asking if I wanted casserole. "Not tonight, Mom. I've got some work to catch up on." "You and your work." She shook her head the same way she always did, half smile, half judgment. "Don't forget the party is October 26th. I need you to confirm the guest count with the restaurant." "I'll call them Monday." "You're a good girl, Elise." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I hugged her and she smelled like butter and cinnamon and 47 lies. I called Maisie from the backyard. She came running, grass-stained knees, grinning. I took her hand and walked to the car. Buckled her in. Walked around to the driver's side. My mother waved from the porch. "Drive safe, honey, and don't forget the transfer Tuesday." "I won't, Mom." I backed out of the driveway, past the BMW, past the new landscaping, past the house I built for people who were building a life without me inside it. On the expressway, Maisie said, "Mommy, you're squeezing the steering wheel really hard." I loosened my grip. "Sorry, baby." "Are you mad at somebody?" "No, I'm just thinking." "About what?" I looked at her in the rearview mirror. Grass in her hair, her father's jaw, my stubbornness. "About what comes next," I said. I drove home under the speed limit. I gave Maisie a bath. I read her 2 chapters of Charlotte's Web. I kissed her forehead. I closed her door. Then I sat on my kitchen floor and pressed my back against the cabinet, and I made a decision that 12 years of loyalty had been building toward. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to wait. And when the time was right, I was going to show every single person in that family exactly what $9,000 a month was worth. I spent the next week being the best daughter Gail Winslow ever had. I called every other day. I asked about Dad's appetite. I sent the 9,000 right on time. And every night after Maisie went to bed, I opened my laptop and built the case that would end everything. But I couldn't do it alone. I knew the numbers. I'd always known numbers. What I didn't know was whether any of it mattered outside my kitchen table. I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy, and I needed someone to tell me what I could actually do. Donna found me first. She was 53, twice divorced, and had worked 2 desks down from me for 4 years. We weren't close coffee machine friends mostly. She asked about Maisie sometimes. I asked about her cats. That was the extent of it. That Wednesday, she walked into the break room while I was staring at my phone. I didn't realize I'd been crying until she handed me a napkin. "You okay, hun?" "Fine. Allergies." Donna sat down across from me. She didn't push. She just waited the way women who've been through things know how to wait. After a minute, I told her. Not everything. Just the part about my parents and the money. 12 years, 9,000 a month. My mother asking for more. Donna set her coffee down. She looked at me the way a mechanic looks at a car someone's been driving with no oil for 100,000 miles. "Honey, that's not love. That's a subscription fee. And you just found out you've been auto-renewing for 12 years. I laughed. I hadn't laughed in weeks, and it came out cracked and wrong, but it was real. Donna didn't laugh with me. She leaned forward. "I'm serious, Elise. What you're describing, that's not family helping family. That's financial abuse. And I know what that looks like because my first husband did the same thing, except he used a joint checking account instead of guilt." Financial abuse. 2 words I'd never put together before. Not about my parents. Not about the people who raised me, who I sent birthday cards to, who I drove Maisie to see every other weekend. But the words fit like a key in a lock I didn't know existed, and once it turned, the door wouldn't close again. I called Rachel Tanaka that Friday. We'd gone to Northwestern together. She'd gone to law school, I'd gone to finance. We hadn't talked in 3 years, but she picked up on the second ring like no time had passed. We met at a coffee shop in Wicker Park. I brought a folder, bank statements, 24 months, every line highlighted. The text messages I'd screenshotted from the iPad. The list of 47 lies about my father's heart. Rachel looked through the folder for 2 minutes. She didn't interrupt. Then she closed it, folded her hands, and said, Elise, you're not legally obligated to give your parents a single dollar. Illinois has no filial support law. Adult children don't owe their parents anything. I know that. I've always known that. Then you also need to know this: what your mother did making up a medical condition to get you to increase payments. That's fraud. If you wanted to pursue it, you could. I shook my head. I don't want to sue my mother. Okay. What do you want? I looked at the folder. 24 months of lies in black and white. The BMW. The spa. The Cancun trip. The texts. Don't tell your sister. I want to stop paying. And I want them to know why in front of everyone who thinks they're wonderful parents. Rachel studied me. The anniversary party. October 26th. Mom invited half the church. The Hendersons. Pastor Williams. 50 people. That's your stage. That's my stage. Rachel closed the folder and slid it back to me. Then here's what you do. Keep everything exactly the same until then. Send the money. Call your mother. Act normal. If she suspects anything, she'll control the narrative before you can. And Elise, don't send the last payment until the week before. Let her feel safe. I understood. The party my mother was planning with my money would be the last thing my money ever paid for. That Sunday, I FaceTimed Aunt Pauline. Pauline was my mother's younger sister. 58, lived in Schaumburg, taught middle school for 30 years. She was the only person in my family who'd ever said anything. 10 years ago at Thanksgiving, she'd told my mother, "You're using Elise Gale. You know that, right?" My mother didn't speak to Pauline for 5 years after that. Told the whole family Pauline was jealous. Told the church Pauline had issues. By the time they started talking again, the damage was done. Pauline was the crazy aunt, the troublemaker, the one who didn't understand family loyalty. When her face appeared on my screen, she looked older, tired. But when I told her what I'd found, the fake diagnosis, the bank statements, Paige and Wes, our mother's blessing, her eyes went wet, and she pressed her hand against the screen like she was trying to reach through it. Oh, baby, I've been waiting for you to see it. 10 years I've been waiting. Aunt Pauline, Mom told everyone I barely help, that I'm selfish. Pauline closed her eyes. I know. She told the book club. She told Pastor Williams. She told your cousin Jennifer. She said you call once a month and send a little money when you feel like it. Pauline opened her eyes. She's been building that story for years, Elise, so that when you finally stopped giving, everyone would blame you. The room was quiet. Maisie was asleep. The laptop was open on the coffee table with the spreadsheet glowing. The anniversary party. I said. Are you invited? No. Can you get yourself there? Pauline's face changed. Something between a smile and a decision. Gail doesn't own that restaurant. I'll be there. I nodded. October 26th. October 26th. We hung up. I sat in the quiet for a while. Then I picked up my coffee, cold now bitter, and drank it anyway. For the first time in 12 years, I wasn't alone in knowing. Donna saw it. Rachel confirmed it. Pauline had been waiting for it. The party was 4 weeks away. I had work to do. The hardest part wasn't finding out my mother lied about my father's heart. It wasn't seeing my sister's selfies with my ex-husband. The hardest part was calling my mother the next day and asking, "How's Dad feeling today?" "Oh, you know." My mother's voice was light, easy. "Good days and bad days. The doctor adjusted his medication last week. We're hopeful." "That's great, Mom. Tell him I'm thinking about him." "I will, honey. He'll appreciate that." I hung up, walked to the kitchen, poured my coffee into the sink and watched it spiral down the drain. Then I opened my laptop and highlighted 3 more lines on the spreadsheet. This became my life for the next 3 weeks. 2 lives running parallel, never touching. In the first life, I was the same Elise. called Mom every other day, asked about Dad's appetite, his energy, his sleep. Texted Paige, a smiley face on her Instagram post, a selfie at some rooftop bar pouting at the camera in a jacket I was pretty sure cost more than Maisie's entire fall wardrobe. I sent the 9,000 on the first Tuesday of October. Right on time. I even added a note in the memo line, "Love Elise." My mother texted back a heart emoji. In the second life, I was someone my mother had never met. Every night after Maisie went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table and worked. Bank statements printed and organized by month. Screenshots backed up to a cloud folder and emailed to myself. A single manila folder, no fancy binder, no color-coded tabs. Just paper and truth. Rachel said, "Keep it simple. Numbers don't need decoration." The hardest night was a Wednesday, 2 weeks before the party. My mother called while Maisie was doing homework at the kitchen table, and I had to stand 3 feet from my open laptop, the spreadsheet glowing behind me, and listen to my mother talk about centerpieces. I'm thinking white roses, classic. And those little tea candles in glass holders, you know, the ones from Pinterest. Oh, and Elise, I need you to handle the catering deposit. It's $3,200. Sure, Mom. The chocolate fountain was more than I expected, but it photographs so well. This is a once-in-a-lifetime celebration, right? 40 years. 40 years, I repeated. I want everything perfect. Pastor Williams is coming, the Hendersons, the whole book club. Everyone. Everyone, I thought. Good. I'll take care of it, Mom. You always do, honey. A pause. Then, "You're being so agreeable lately. Is everything okay?" My heart skipped. I turned away from the laptop. "Just glad Dad's doing better." Another pause. I could hear her deciding whether to push. Then, "Well, good. Don't forget the 26th. 6 o'clock. I'll be there." I paid the $3,200 that afternoon. Catering for 50 guests. White tablecloths, 3-course dinner, the chocolate fountain my mother picked because it photographed well. I smiled when I confirmed the payment. Not a happy smile. The kind of smile a woman makes when she's writing the last check she'll ever write to people who never deserve the first one. The following Saturday, I took Maisie to my parents' house. Normal visit. Maisie played in the backyard. My mother showed me fabric swatches for the table runners. My father sat in his recliner watching college football, yelling at the screen about a bad call, eating a bowl of pretzels. Heart patient of the year. I sat on the couch across from him. He looked up and smiled. "Hey, sweetheart, how's my girl?" "Good, Dad. How are you feeling?" "Oh, you know, same old." He patted his chest absently. "Your mother worries too much." I nodded, smiled, felt nothing. In the kitchen, my mother was on the phone with someone. I could hear her voice, animated, excited. "And Paige is bringing her new boyfriend. I'm so happy for her. He's very handsome, very charming." My hands were in my lap. I studied them, the nails I hadn't gotten done in 2 years, the callus on my right ring finger from the way I held a pen. These hands had written checks, signed transfers, typed love into memo lines for 12 years. In 2 weeks, they'd do something different. Maisie ran in from the backyard, breathless. "Mommy, Grandma's garden has a ladybug." "Yeah, how many spots?" "7, I counted." "7's lucky," I said. I pulled her onto my lap. She smelled like grass and sunscreen. My father glanced over and went back to the game. My mother was still on the phone laughing about the chocolate fountain. Everything looked the same. The house, the recliner, the football, the daughter on the couch, and the granddaughter in her lap, and the money flowing in like a river nobody questioned. But underneath, the foundation was already cracked. They just couldn't feel it yet. I drove home that evening. Maisie fell asleep in the back seat before we hit the expressway. At a red light, I looked at her in the rearview mirror, mouth open, head tilted, one shoe untied. I whispered, "2 more weeks, baby." She didn't hear me. That was fine. She didn't need to. This part was mine. 3 days before the party, my mother called to confirm the guest list. 52 people. She didn't know I'd added one. Aunt Pauline had called me the night before. I told your cousin Jennifer I was coming. Jennifer told your mother's friend Linda. Linda will mention it to Gail, but not until the day of. You know how Linda is always running late with gossip. Pauline paused. By the time your mother finds out I'm there, she'll be too proud to make a scene in front of Pastor Williams. She'll smile and pretend she invited me herself. You know her well, I said. I was her sister for 58 years, baby. I know every move she makes before she makes it. The week before October 26th moved like honey, slow, thick, impossible to rush. I went to work. I picked up Maisie. I cooked dinner. I called my mother twice. Normal. Perfect. The kind of daughter you'd put on a Christmas card. But at night, after Maisie's door closed and the apartment went quiet, I sat at the kitchen table and went through the folder one more time. Bank statements, screenshots, the list of 47 texts. I didn't need to review them. I had every number memorized, every lie cataloged, but I checked anyway, the same way a surgeon checks her instruments before she cuts. On Wednesday, I called Rachel. Everything's still the same, she asked. Same. She called today to tell me about the seating chart. She put me at the far end of the table. Rachel was quiet for a beat. And Paige. Next to Mom and Dad. With Wes. Of course. Rachel's voice was even. Elise, I want to say this one more time. You're not doing anything illegal. You're not suing anyone. You're not filing charges. You're telling the truth at a dinner party. That's it. If anyone tries to twist this later, you were a guest, you spoke, you left. I know. And after you're done, no more payments, no more calls. Clean break. Clean break. Good. Keep it simple. Say what you need to say and walk out. Don't argue. Don't explain. Let the numbers talk. On Thursday, I went to the bank. The teller was a young woman, maybe 24, the age I was when I sent my first envelope. Her name tag said Keisha. I handed her the withdrawal slip. I need a cashier's check, please. Sure. What amount? $9. Keisha looked up, looked at the slip, looked at me. $9. $9. She didn't ask why. Maybe she could tell from my face that the answer was longer than either of us had time for. She printed the check. I watched it come out of the printer, a small, crisp rectangle. $9? The price of a large coffee at Starbucks. The price of a birthday candle from TJ Maxx with the sticker still on. I slid it into a white envelope. Plain. No design. On the front, I wrote in blue ink for Mom and Dad. I stared at it. 12 years ago, the first envelope had 3 more words. For Mom and Dad. Love, Elise. I remembered writing them at my kitchen table in my first apartment, 24 years old, so proud to finally be able to help. So sure that this was what good daughters did. I put the pen down. No love. Not this time. Not ever again. On Friday evening, I took Maisie to Target. She needed tights for the party. I needed to stop thinking for an hour. We ended up in the women's section, and Maisie pointed at a black dress on a mannequin. That's pretty, Mommy. You should get it. I looked at the dress. Simple, fitted. Nothing expensive. But it was the kind of thing I hadn't bought for myself in years because the money always went somewhere else. To someone else. You know what, baby? You're right. I bought the dress. $42. And a navy blue dress for Maisie. She tried it on in the fitting room and spun in front of the mirror until she was dizzy. Mommy, I look like a princess. I knelt down and straightened her hem. You look like exactly who you are, baby. That night, I ironed both dresses and hung them on the back of my bedroom door. I set out Maisie's shoes, the black ones with the little bows. I put the white envelope in my purse next to the manila folder. I set my alarm for 5. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at my hands. The hands that had signed every check, typed every transfer. Written Love Elise on envelopes that bought other people's happiness. Tomorrow, those hands would do one last thing for this family, and then they'd be free. If you've ever given everything to people who gave you nothing back, if you've ever been the one who pays and pays and pays while someone else gets the flowers, hit subscribe. Because what happens next is for you. The morning of October 26th, I woke up at 5. Maisie was still sleeping. I made coffee Folgers, same as always. I ironed Maisie's navy dress one more time, even though it didn't need it. I put on the black dress from Target. $42. I looked in the mirror for a long time. The woman looking back wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't sad. She was just clear. I slipped the white envelope into my purse, next to the manila folder, next to 12 years of evidence that my family had treated me like an ATM with a heartbeat. The party started at 6. My mother had no idea it would be over by 7. The restaurant looked beautiful. White tablecloths, candles, a chocolate fountain my mother picked because it photographed well. 52 people dressed in their Sunday best raising glasses to 40 years of marriage. My mother was glowing. She had no idea she had about 40 minutes left. The room was warm golden, the kind of light that makes everyone look 10 years younger and 10 times kinder. My mother had outdone herself, or rather, my checkbook had. White roses in crystal vases, tea candles in glass holders, a 3-course menu printed on cardstock with my parents' names in gold script, Gail and Donald, 40 years of love. I stared at that word. Love. Funny how some people use it like currency they never earned. Maisie and I were seated at the far end of the table. Of course. Paige was at the center next to my parents, right where the light was best. And next to Paige, in a charcoal blazer and a smile he probably practiced in the mirror, was Wes, my ex-husband, sitting at my parents' anniversary dinner, holding my sister's hand, wearing a watch I didn't recognize, probably bought with the money I sent in July. My mother had stood up 10 minutes ago to give a toast. She thanked God, thanked the church, thanked her beautiful daughters, both of them. She added, glancing at me with the kind of smile that costs nothing and means less. Then she said, "Family is everything." And 52 people raised their glasses. I raised mine too. Took a sip. Set it down. Paige found me during the main course. She walked over while I was cutting Maisie's chicken, her heels clicking on the hardwood, the white dress catching every candle in the room. $3,000 of fabric and confidence bought with my money, walking toward me like a runway. "Cute dress, Nora." "Sorry, Elise?" She laughed at her own joke. A few people at the near end of the table glanced over. "Is that from Target?" "You should let me take you shopping sometime. Wes loves a woman who takes care of herself." I looked at her, smiled, said nothing. She leaned closer. Just the two of us now. Her perfume was expensive, something floral and sharp like a rose dipped in vinegar. "You know, Elise, maybe if you'd spent less time staring at spreadsheets and more time staring at your husband, he wouldn't have come looking for me." The same words. Almost the exact same words Wes had said 3 years ago. She'd learned them from him, or he'd taught them to her, or they'd rehearsed the line together in whatever bed they'd shared while I was working overtime to keep this whole family afloat. I looked at Paige, 28 years old, my sister, my blood, standing in a dress I paid for, holding a man I married in a restaurant I'd rented at a party I'd funded, and she was telling me it was my fault. I smiled. Not a warm smile. The kind that starts at the mouth and never reaches the eyes. Paige saw it. Something flickered across her face, a crack in the porcelain. But she tossed her hair and walked back to Wes, and the crack sealed shut. I wiped Maisie's chin. "You okay here for a minute, baby? Mommy needs to say something." "Okay, Mommy." I stood up. The room was loud, forks on plates, laughter, someone's uncle telling a story about a fishing trip. I walked to the center of the table where my mother sat between my father and Pastor Williams, still glowing, still performing. Mom, can I say a few words? My mother's face lit up. She touched my arm. Of course, honey. Everyone, everyone quiet down. Elise wants to say something. The room settled. 52 faces turned toward me. Candles flickered. The chocolate fountain hummed. I took a breath. Thank you all for being here tonight. 40 years is a long time. And I want to talk about what 40 years of family really cost. A few polite smiles. My mother nodded encouraging. I've been sending my parents money every month for 12 years, since I was 24 years old. The total, and I've counted, is $1,296,000. The smiles faded. My mother's hand, still resting on my arm, went stiff. Someone at the far end of the table set down a glass too hard. $9,000 a month. Every month. For 12 years. That paid for this house my parents live in. This party tonight. The catering. The roses. The chocolate fountain. I looked at my mother. She was still smiling, but the smile had frozen the way a lake freezes, hard and thin with something dark moving underneath. Mom, 2 years ago you called me crying. You told me Dad had a heart condition. You said he needed specialists, medication, monitoring. You said the bills were overwhelming. So I increased my payments. I cut Maisie's dance classes. I skipped meals. I lay awake at 3 in the morning doing math in my head, trying to figure out how to keep my father alive. I looked at my father. He was holding his fork in midair, a piece of steak still on its sauce on the corner of his mouth. Healthy. Color in his cheeks. A man who played golf every Tuesday and hadn't seen the inside of a hospital in years. I called St. Catherine's Dad, and Mercy General, and Lakewood, and Crestview. None of them have ever treated you. I called the pharmacy on Maple, no prescriptions. There is no heart condition. There never was. My father put the fork down. It clinked against the plate, the loudest sound in the room. My mother opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The money I sent for Dad's treatment went to a BMW, to Nordstrom, to business class tickets to Cancun, to spa weekends and a 70-inch TV and a golf membership. My mother found her voice. Elise, stop it. You're embarrassing this family. I'm not done. The room was so quiet I could hear the chocolate fountain churning. I looked at Paige. She was gripping Wes's arm. Her face had gone the color of the tablecloth. That dress you're wearing, Paige, the white one, $3,000 from Nordstrom. Charged 2 days after Mom's last transfer from my account. I paused. You look beautiful in it. I should know. I paid for it. Paige stood up. You went through my phone. I didn't have to. Grandma's iPad syncs, and Maisie was playing on it. Paige's mouth opened and closed. She looked at my mother. My mother looked at the table. But the dress isn't what I want to talk about. I turned to the room. 2 years ago, 5 months before my divorce was final, my sister began a relationship with my husband. My mother knew. She encouraged it. A murmur spread through the room like a crack through glass. I have the messages. Mom texted Paige 6 months ago, I'm happy for you, baby. You deserve someone who pays attention to you. Don't tell your sister. Diane Gale. My mother made a sound, not a word. Something between a gasp and a swallow. Pastor Williams set his napkin on the table slowly, the way you set something down when you're deciding whether to stay or leave. I reached into my purse, pulled out the white envelope, walked to my mother and set it on the table in front of her next to her untouched glass of wine. You said 9,000 wasn't enough. My mother stared at the envelope. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. She pulled out the check, looked at it. Her lips moved, reading the number. $9. There's $9 in there, Mom. That's what 12 years of being your ATM is worth to me now. Not a penny more. Not ever again. My mother looked up. Her eyes swept the room, Pastor Williams, the Hendersons, the book club. The neighbors, every person she'd spent 40 years building a reputation in front of. They were all looking back. Nobody was smiling. She turned to my father. "Donald, say something." My father opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then he looked down at his plate and said nothing. 36 years of marriage to my mother, and he did what he always did. He disappeared. Paige grabbed Wes's arm. "Say something. Tell them she's lying." Wes looked at Paige, looked at the room, looked at the door. Then he did what he always did too. He stood up, pulled his arm free, and walked toward the exit without a word. The same gym bag exit. The same silence. The same back. Walking away. Paige watched him go. Her hand stayed in the air where his arm had been, fingers curled around nothing. Then, from the far end of the table, a chair scraped back. Aunt Pauline stood up. She'd been sitting quietly the whole time next to Cousin Jennifer in a blue cardigan and no jewelry. Nobody had noticed her arrive. My mother noticed her now. "Gloria Pauline, what are you doing here?" "I told you 10 years ago, Gail." Pauline's voice was steady, calm, the voice of a woman who'd been waiting a decade for this moment. "I told you this day would come. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about, and so does everyone in this room now." Nobody spoke. The candles flickered. The chocolate fountain kept churning, the only thing in the room still moving. Someone's phone buzzed and they silenced it without looking. Mrs. Henderson clutched her husband's arm. Pastor Williams had his eyes closed, his lips moving slightly. I think he was praying. I took Maisie's hand. She looked up at me, chocolate on her chin, eyes wide. "Are we going home, Mommy?" "Yeah, baby, we're going home." I picked up her jacket. I picked up my purse, lighter now by one envelope. We walked through the room, past the white roses and the gold-scripted menus, and the frozen faces of 52 people who had just watched 40 years of performance crumble in 4 minutes. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, cracked, now stripped of the polish she wore like armor. "Elise, Elise, wait. Elise, please." I didn't turn around. Maisie held my hand and we pushed through the front door into the October night. The air hit my face cold, clean, real. The parking lot was dark, and the sky was full of stars, and somewhere behind me, a chocolate fountain was still churning for a party that was already over. I buckled Maisie into her seat, walked around the car, got in, put my hands on the wheel. For the first time in 12 years, I could breathe. Gail called 14 times that night. I let everyone go to voicemail. By the 3rd message, she was crying. By the 7th, she was screaming. By the 14th, she was begging. I didn't listen to them. Rachel did. I forwarded them to her the next morning, and she called me back an hour later. Message 1, "You're ungrateful and you ruined their anniversary." Message 7, "You need to come home right now and apologize before the whole church hears about this." Message 14. Rachel paused. Message 14. "She's crying so hard I can barely make it out, but it's something like, 'I'm your mother, Elise. I'm your mother.'" That's it. That's it. No apology, no admission. 14 messages and not one sentence that starts with "I'm sorry." I wasn't surprised. You can't apologize for something you still believe you were entitled to do. The first Tuesday of November came. For the first time in 12 years, I did not open my banking app. I did not type in an amount. I did not hit confirm. I made Maisie's lunch, drove her to school, went to work, came home, made dinner. The $9,000 stayed in my account. It felt like finding a room in my house I'd forgotten existed. I also canceled the automatic mortgage payment, the one I'd set up 6 years ago to pay my parents' house directly. The bank confirmed it within an hour. Clean, simple, done. The consequences came faster than I expected. Aunt Pauline kept me updated. She'd reconnected with Cousin Jennifer, who still talked to my mother's neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Information traveled the way it always does in families sideways through cracks in whispers over coffee. Week 1. Gail tried damage control at church, told Pastor Williams that I'd had a breakdown at the party, that I was going through something, that she was praying for me. Pastor Williams listened politely. Then he didn't invite her to lead the women's Bible study the following week. First time in 11 years. My mother noticed. Week 2. The mortgage payment bounced. The bank sent a notice. My mother called the bank and learned for the first time that the monthly payments had been coming from my account. Not hers, not my father's, mine. For 6 years she'd believed, or chosen to believe, that the house was simply paid for. Now she understood what paid for meant. Week 3. Paige's BMW insurance came due. No one paid it. Paige called Gail. Gail called Donald. Donald stared at his hands. The BMW pearl white leather seats, the one they'd handed Paige the keys to at her 25th birthday party, sat in the driveway for 2 weeks before Paige sold it to a dealership for less than half what it cost. She started taking the bus. And Wes did what Wes always does. Pauline heard it from Jennifer, who heard it from someone at Paige's gym 3 weeks after the party. Wes moved out of Paige's apartment. No note this time, not even on the back of a takeout menu. He just stopped coming home. Paige called him for 5 days straight. On the 6th day, the number was disconnected. I'd like to say I felt satisfaction hearing that. The truth is, I didn't feel much of anything. Wes was a man who attached himself to whoever was standing closest to the money, and when the money moved, he moved with it. He hadn't loved me. He hadn't loved Paige. He loved convenience. And convenience had left the building on October 26th. Paige moved back in with my parents 2 weeks later. The apartment she couldn't afford because she'd never had to. 28 years old, back in her childhood bedroom. No car, no boyfriend, no sister willing to pick up the phone. My father called once. Just once. It was a Sunday morning. Maisie was eating cereal and watching cartoons. I almost didn't answer, but something in me, the part that still remembered being 5 years old and sitting on his lap while he read the newspaper, picked up. Elise? His voice was small, smaller than I'd ever heard it. Your mother. She just wanted what was best for the family. I let the silence sit for 5 seconds. Then I said, "Which family, Dad, because it was never mine?" He didn't answer. I could hear the TV in the background, a football game, low volume. The same sound from every Sunday of my childhood. The same man in the same chair saying nothing when it mattered. Dad, I'm here. You were always there. That was the problem. He hung up. Or maybe I did. I don't remember. I put the phone on the counter and watched Maisie eat her cereal, one careful spoonful at a time, her feet swinging under the chair because they didn't reach the floor yet. She looked up. Mommy, you okay? Yeah, baby, I'm okay. For the first time, that wasn't a lie. 3 months later, a for sale sign went up on the front lawn of the house I'd been paying for since I was 24. Gail didn't call to tell me. I saw it on Pauline's Facebook. I stared at the photo for a long time, the lawn I'd paid to landscape, the roof I'd paid to replace the driveway where the BMW used to sit. Then I closed the app and made Maisie's lunch. 6 months after the party, I moved. Not far, just to a bigger apartment in Lakeview, 2 bedrooms with actual sunlight and a kitchen window that looked out at the trees. It was the first home I chose just for me and Maisie. The morning we moved in, Maisie ran from room to room barefoot on the hardwood, opening every closet like she expected to find treasure inside. Her bedroom had a window facing east. The first thing she saw every morning would be light. She taped a drawing of a ladybug to the wall above her bed. 7 spots. Lucky. Mommy, this room is mine. All yours, baby. Forever, forever. She dove onto her bed and starfished across the comforter, grinning at the ceiling. I stood in the doorway. and let myself feel it, this quiet, unspectacular thing that had cost me 12 years to find. A home that no one could take credit for. A home that owed nothing to anyone. Saturday mornings became ours. We walked to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, a little place with wobbly tables and a chalkboard menu. Maisie ordered hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. I ordered a latte. Not Folgers, not anymore. We sat by the window and watched people walk their dogs and argue about parking and carry grocery bags in the rain, and none of it was dramatic, and all of it was enough. Aunt Pauline came by on a Sunday with an apple pie and a bottle of wine. She walked through the apartment nodding, touching the kitchen counter, looking out the window at the trees. "This is good, Elise. This is really good." We sat on the couch, my couch bought with my money for my home, and she told me the rest. My parents had sold the house. Took a loss. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Berwyn, a far cry from the 4-bedroom suburban showcase I'd been funding. Paige was living with them. She'd picked up a part-time job at a nail salon. No BMW, no Nordstrom, no Cancun. "Your mother told the church you abandoned them," Pauline said, watching my face. "Let her. She'll never admit she was wrong. You know that." I looked out the window. The trees were bare. Late winter, everything stripped down to branches. But there were buds forming, tiny, barely visible. You had to know where to look. "I know," I said. I stopped needing her to. Pauline squeezed my hand and didn't say anything else. Some things don't need more words. That night, after Maisie went to bed, I was unpacking the last box, the junk drawer stuffed the paperwork, the things you carry from place to place, without knowing why. At the bottom, under a stack of old tax returns, I found it. The copy of the first envelope. 12 years old. Blue ink slightly faded for Mom and Dad. "Love, Elise." I held it for a long time. I thought about the 24-year-old who wrote those words, how proud she was, how sure she was that love was something you could prove with a check. She wasn't wrong to love them. She was wrong to think it would be returned in kind. I put the envelope back in the drawer. I didn't throw it away. Some things you keep not because they're precious, but because they remind you how far you've walked. I spent 12 years trying to buy something that was never for sale. Last month, my father left me a voicemail. His voice was shaking. He said Mom was having trouble sleeping, that she missed Maisie, that he was sorry. Things got complicated. He asked me to call him back. I haven't yet. I don't know if I will. If you've ever had to choose between loyalty and survival, between being a good daughter and being a good mother, I hope this story told you what I wish someone had told me years ago. You don't owe your suffering to anyone, not even family. Thank you for listening.